Yes, it is. We on? We're good. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to You Make the Call, and thanks for joining us. I'm with my partner, Barry Sinewitz. Barry.
Happy New Year, Dick.
Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to all of you. It's our first show since the New Year's, and so we're back, hopefully back on schedule. And there's a lot of stuff going on in Peabody, and I want to say thanks for joining us, because we do have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. And, you know, the frustration is coming out from my perspective already. I have no idea what my partner's going to be like in a little while, but, you know, you're going to hear a lot of rants and raves from me about the way our city government isn't working for us and going off on their own and, you know, catching up with us later on sometime, you know. Instead of us being treated like we're important to the system, we're just an afterthought for some of these people. So we're going to talk about some projects that are ongoing right now that will stress some of the things I just said, and I'm going to do my best to point out what I meant as we're going through these projects. So I think what we're going to do without further delay, we're just going to get right into it. First issue that we want to open up with is there's an issue on Walnut Street, and it's a former coffee house in Walnut Street. I think you know. It's across from New England Meat Market, and it's a restaurant coffee house that it's around 5961. That number there.
59. Yeah.
And so there's an issue there that a couple of weeks ago there was a proposal to take the downstairs restaurant and convert it into eight
units, correct.
Units, some kind of they call efficiency units and whatnot. Usually that means that it's not a full, things aren't, you know, like a full kitchen and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it got killed by the city council. 8 votes were needed to pass the proposal. It didn't get 8 votes, it got 7. And so Council Matsoulis filed for reconsideration with the city clerk, and so they're going to be, I think they're going to be talking about it tomorrow night.
Correct.
I think tomorrow night's the meeting to talk about it. The reason we want to talk about it is that, again, when you have a government and you have councilors who really aren't on the same page with one another, that may not like each other, they may have personal agendas hanging on the table rather than really dealing with an issue. They want to exact some maybe some retribution for something or whatever, personal agendas, and that's, I think, what's going on in this situation. And because the issue itself isn't a large, major issue, even though one councilor said it's important, it's not really important. It's an issue that needs to be taken care of, but in the scheme of things, it's not a big issue. It's not a major housing issue or anything like that. But he is right when he says that the reasons for killing the proposal were somewhat unimportant, they were trivial. And I think that's an appropriate thing to say based on the reasons some councilors used to kill the proposal. It was shot down by 4 councilors. One of those 4 who shot it down said it was because the site was located in a flood zone.
Flood zone, yeah.
And what part of Peabody in this area isn't
in a flood zone?
So, and so that was the reason that councilor gave. Another one was a reason that which I think are important, obviously, some emergency lighting wasn't fixed, you know, in an appropriate time. It's very important, but it's long since passed and it's been done, so no, it's a non-starter now. You know some of the other reasons too.
Yeah, well, I think one of the reasons brought up by the city council president was the issue of affordable units, and we do have inclusionary zoning. And there's only 8 units because 9 were existing, so I believe you have to go by what's built new. So you're basing that inclusionary zoning on 8 units. I hear what he was saying, but it's 8 units.
But only one of them would be.
Yeah, you get 15%, so roughly it's one unit.
Yeah, 1 unit.
And then there was an issue where supposedly the property owner was going to borrow $250,000 from the city, and then the city community development made an arrangement that the units would have to stay affordable, but no one told the city council. So that lack of communication is not proper, and somebody has to be there. If you're lending somebody $250,000, you have skin in the game.
Right.
So they should have been there to tell the council. Having said that, I don't know if you can. You do have an ordinance about 15%, so one unit, and the units are only, they're saying $950, and they were working with NASCAP. So I get that part. The flood. To me, the flood issue is ridiculous. We've built everywhere in flood zones here, and you can't pick and choose. And Dick, there's more units coming. So I want to see if the same people stay true to what they believe in. Howley Street property, they want to change the zoning. That's a flood zone. Latitudes is a flood zone.
Devil's Fishville up in West Peabody, they've got houses on the wetlands right there.
Yeah.
So I mean, that ship has sailed. This idea in Peabody that they're really protecting watershed and wetlands is not true. They're not doing that, and so it's just a false argument, and that's why this idea of the denying of this proposal is more personal. When you have 3 ward councilors, now you were a ward councilor, 3 ward councilors out of the 4 who voted against it. I mean, 3 of the 4 councilors that voted against it, 3 of them were ward councils. It's kind of interesting to go against another ward councilor.
That comment about the code violations, you want to create another lawsuit. Okay, we got enough lawsuits in the city, and you can't hold somebody accountable for somebody else's actions, because I believe the father, who's since passed, didn't fulfill something about the code. It's since been fixed, so what's the big deal?
Right.
And that's the type of thing that if we ever went to court, you would lose. You can't deny it on a code violation that's been fixed already. The judge will look at you sideways, and then you have councilors that vote no and don't say anything.
Yeah.
Like Harpo Marx, you sit there and you don't say anything. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well, the fact that a couple of those councilors didn't even respond to why they did it, okay, tells. See, the reason we bring it up is not because this is an earth-shattering issue in terms of going to affect the whole makeup of our city, but it's our attempt to say, look, this city council is not acting properly. Okay, there's something else going on here, and when you have ward councils ganging up on one another, you know what I mean? It's not a usual course of events on the city council, and it also shows that as we've said here I don't like the city lending money out. I mean, we shouldn't be getting into the lending out of. We shouldn't get into real estate and lending money to developers and whatnot. I don't like that. They can't even run our city properly, and they're doing stuff like this. It's just, the whole thing stinks as far as I'm concerned. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to, to bring this up. And,
it is coming back tomorrow night for another vote.
Yeah.
And if I had a prediction, I would think that at least
pass.
a couple are going to flop.
It'll pass because there's bad blood here someplace.
Well, but also now the mayor, which had no skin in the game on this, although the city did because they were loaning $250,000, and $50,000 was interest-free.
Was interest-free.
I go,
right.
I want to sign up for that one. That's unbelievable. So
you try to get a loan, you couldn't get one.
Yeah. Well, let's not go down that path.
He couldn't even get one, and he was willing to pay interest.
That's a story for another day. But so now the mayor has come out in support of it, so there'll be some, flip-flopping and
damage is done, though.
Yeah.
Damage is done. And once that barn door opens and the horse goes out,
well, you know what, Dick? The thing is being on the council for 10 years, there's a time to when you have to put your foot down and say, whether you win or lose the vote, but you say, no way, I'm not supporting this, and this is why. This isn't one of those reasons we really want to go to the woodshed for
it's
8 units. Yeah, not for
saying.
8 units, and I don't want to discount how, the city council president feels about the affordable, But there's going to be a lot of votes coming up, and I want to see when they're going to change zoning to allow housing at the North Shore Mall. I want to see how many of those high-end units are affordable. Okay? There's going to be a ton of zoning changes to allow housing. Let's see, and some of it will be in flood zones. Let's see if you know, what's good for one is good for another, and see if those votes stay consistent. And that's all you want.
Well, if they're talking about the flood zone down on the, you know, the O'Shea building, which is on the corner of Foster Street and Main, I mean, they were going to build a hotel there, and that's in a flood zone. So, I mean, but the reason we bring it up is not so much about this issue of eight units, efficiency units. It's more about the council not acting properly here with each other. And this is what, it doesn't work in our best interest when you have city councilors doing that kind of stuff. You know, nonsense, childish vendettas, or just, you know, taking care of personal, you know, agendas and whatnot. And you know, it's pretty, you wouldn't know it, the average person wouldn't know it, but people who, you know, the insiders know it, and they know what's going on, and they feed us a lot of information, and there's a lot of bad blood because of little things like this, and this is why we bring it up. Shouldn't happen. Hope it gets straightened out
The
tomorrow.
Ward 3 council is very upset right now. I ran into him in Peabody Square the other day, and he's very upset.
Well, he had to file a reconsideration. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, this will pass, and it'll all, but you create some bad blood between people, ill feelings, and there's no reason to do that, because at the end of the day, you have to be able, if someone criticizes you on the council, you can't take it personal. And I see personal stuff get in the way. If I took it personal, I probably would have had a psychotic episode. I'd be in a straitjacket for all the stuff that I got shot down on that I stood up for.
I know.
So, you know, you have to be able to have thick skin. You got to take compliments, and you have to receive criticism without taking it, oh, who are you to say that to me? Like, that's not the way it's done. You know, I understand your point, but I disagree. And you move on. Because you have to coexist with each other.
Now, you were on the council 10 years. How many flak jackets did you buy?
Well, they threw me in the corner, so they just said, leave him alone, don't talk to him.
Before we go any further, just want to we forgot to mention when we opened the show that we're on YouTube Live tonight, so.
Yeah, are we on, guys? We on? Okay, great.
So, anybody, we just wanted to mention that, so we're up and running on that. Okay, so we all said you want to?
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, it'll get settled, and we'll have some affordable units there, and move on.
Okay. So we'll kind of finish up. If anybody wants to call in, 978-977-0570, give us a call. And, you know, we'd like to try to stick to some of the agenda items we have here. So if you do call, you know, if you know anything about these things we're talking about, you know, chime in. We'd love to hear from you. The second thing is really a near and dear to my heart project that's going on, and of course I'm on the side of the residents all the time, anyway. So you know, I think that, and most of you have heard about it and all that, but it's starting to percolate a little bit, is the former Kindred Hospital, J.B. Thomas Hospital site on the top of King Street and Ellsworth Road. There's a project. The project calls for 135 units of condos. Large project. Large project. If you think of that footprint, large project just in that neighborhood. And so what's happened is that the neighbors have been promised that they would have a voice in this. We have a call? Okay, thank you. I'll hold my remarks. We want to get the calls in. And so, caller, you're on.
For taking my call.
Sorry, can't hear you.
Speak up.
Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Love to have you. Okay.
Okay. Now, first of all, going back to Walnut Street, I disagree with you two gentlemen, because the fundamental issues are zoning. And I've got online right now, I've been looking up the inclusionary zoning. And under the inclusionary zoning, which requires affordable housing for new developments, that zone there is excluded from inclusionary zoning.
Yeah, but the zoning in that area, and you correct me if you're
Yeah,
wrong, allows, it doesn't allow for residences and apartments, but it does allow for rooming houses.
No, it doesn't.
It's a it's a non-conforming use.
Right. But
So-
first of all, under the zoning, there are two sections of the ordinance for zoning. One is the flood boundary district, which this issue is clearly in. It's under the FEMA floodplains, and it says on that ordinance, under the flood boundaries, residents shall be prohibited in that flood zone.
Mm-hmm.
Shall is a very strong legal term. It means shall not, will not, cannot be built. Number one.
Yeah, I hear you.
I have a note here, because I thought this might come up, and I'm glad you brought it up, so we've got to get a clarification on it. But I had a note here that said, in this area zoning, it bans apartments, but allows rooming houses.
Well, again, you've got to, as Barry will know, overlay districts. And the flood boundary and the wetlands conservancy districts are overlay districts to the existing districts. Now, I'm on the city website right now, and that parcel is zoned as a GBD.
Yeah, there's no housing allowed in the GBD.
Okay.
That's why they want to change the zoning on Howley Street.
Okay, so under that, but under the inclusionary zoning, which I have on online right now, it says, in general, the provisions of this ordinance, which is the inclusion, shall apply to zoning districts R2, R3, R4, R5, BN, DDD, and BC. It doesn't call GBD. And shall apply to R1, R1A, and R1B. So the district doesn't, inclusionary zoning is not included in that district.
But inclusionary zoning might have been written before the GBD district was created.
Yeah, but legally
so it
now,
might not have been updated. No, I hear what you're saying about this issue. Just like they built latitudes in a flood zone.
Well, that's true, but that was in a conservancy district, and the city council changed the elevation to take it out of the conservancy district. Now, just let me finish on this. If you notice the developments, the residential developments that were done in the district, the flood boundary overlay district, they all had residents on the upper floors, not on the basement, not on ground level.
Yeah.
And it floods on the ground level. And on the other point, the second point I was going to make, we have Brodies looking for real estate to move their restaurant. That's in a prior existing restaurant. It seems to be, to me, the right size. There's got to be the city has an incentive to move Brodies because we're their landlord.
Yeah, Brody's needs to go, you know.
Well, put them on 59 Walnut Street.
In a flood zone.
Well, that's an allowed use. And why does the city have to be the front man and put up money for a non-allowed use? It's restricted by our ordinances, and we're flipping the ordinances upside down for some special interest.
There's no doubt, and it's happened over and over and over again, and there's no consistency. So it's just like throw it to the wind. Yeah, we like this project. It's going to be this. Put it in there.
But you're setting a precedent by putting residents on the ground floor. As you know, Barry, on Howley Street, they want to put apartments or condos down there.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if they put them on the upper levels, that may be a permissible use. But to put them on the ground floor, which we know it's going to flood.
Well, let me just say this.
Supposedly they have all kinds of pumps there and all that kind of stuff, too. So
You can put them on the second and third floor if the place is surrounded by water, and if your car is parked there, your car will be 3 feet under, and they're going to need a boat to get you out.
You're right. And we have experience with that in the fire department.
But why would we give them a $250,000 loan if that's the case?
We have money to spend in the city of Peabody.
In a flood zone.
Taxpayers' money.
We could talk of this in circles.
Okay,
I hear
just
you.
wanted to point it out. There's flipping the zoning upside down to satisfy special interests.
Yeah.
No
And
question.
This particular project's been extended and extended on the city council for over 2 years until they got the right council and the right influence down there in the corner office.
Well, there's no question you're right about the special interest. There's no question about that. So,
All right, well, listen,
All right, thanks for the call.
I'll listen to the next story. Don't worry about parking. We have plenty of spaces.
Where?
Up on King Street.
Okay.
Talk to you guys later.
thanks a lot. Appreciate it. You made some good points. Okay. Let's see. Do we have another one? We do have another one? Okay.
Uh-oh. We have another call?
Yep. Caller, you're on. Caller?
Hello?
Hello. You're on.
You're on.
What's that?
I think that was somebody from the city council.
Okay. Do me a favor. Don't call back.
It was a crank call.
Jeez.
All right, let's
okay.
get on to J.B. Thomas.
All right, so the J.B. Thomas site, again, it's going to be about 130, the proposal is about 135 units of the condos and apartments and whatnot. And so anyway, pretty large footprint for that area. And again, the neighbors in that area were promised by city officials that they would be given a voice on what was going to happen up there and
Be involved.
be involved, and any concerns they have, they were going to be able to voice those concerns, and the developer and the city would work with the neighbors to resolve those issues. But I guess that's not happening. So I guess, the cat got out of the bag. I guess, was it on Facebook? Did it get on?
Yeah, well, so let's take a step back. So originally, the city was hot and heavy to change the zoning. I think we discussed it.
Right.
And that zoning over there now is R2. So in order to build condominiums, they have to change the zoning to an R4. And there was a lot of discussion how they were going to isolate it and not be spot zoning and all that type of thing. And it just died on the vine. All of a sudden, it went away. And then it as your word, percolated up again. And then the city, the ward councilor, the Ward 4 council said everything's going great. And the city says, I have no clue what you're talking about. We haven't heard from the developer in months. So that was the last we heard of it. And then on Facebook, the neighbors, I guess, that live in that area are very upset.
They are.
And then recently there was an article in the newspaper, and the Ward 4 councilor must have, I don't know how the newspaper must have called the press to come down and do a photo op, because they just don't drive by and say, hey, there they are, let's take a picture. So they must have gone down to the site, and when some of the developers were there, and I think it basically said in the article that he said things are progressing smoothly. And I'm like, for who? Who is this progressing? Because if it hasn't been rezoned yet. The neighbors know nothing about the project. They want to be involved. They want to have a voice. They want to have a say. A school committee member wrote an editorial to the Salem News, who lives like almost directly across from it, saying, where's the representation? Why is this being done, privately?
Right.
And that's not the way you do things. It's got to be an open process. And when it's progressing, how does it progress when you haven't changed the zoning?
Well, this is one of the reasons, again, we're bringing these projects up to light tonight. There's another reason on this one, is that the process isn't being followed. And I, for one, we talked about it before the show, we're in total agreement that all of this stuff shouldn't be happening. There shouldn't be any progress going on with negotiations on this project, and it shouldn't be classified as on target, smooth sailing, because it's the cart before the horse. The city council should be aware of what's going on, and there should be at least some kind of idea and discussion about zoning changes before all this can happen.
Yeah, absolutely, because
I mean, you're putting the cart before the horse.
And I don't know if the ward council understands zoning, but they want to change it to an R4.
Right.
And when you change it to an R4, there's certain other uses that are allowed, like a restaurant, a convenience store, a whole slew of businesses that are allowed in the R4. So that has to be talked about in the planning stages, because maybe, hey, let's put a restaurant and a convenience store and a barber shop and a cleaners right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So that's called planning. It's called planning. So I don't know what the progress is, but it should be done in an open process. So I don't know what's going on.
But see, that's exactly the point, and that's exactly the point we bring. There is a process, and it should be going. The steps on. There's a step being missed all the time or jumped over, and and the way it looks right now, if all of this, if what was said on Facebook is correct, and things are going great in negotiations on this project up there in King Street. Whether they come back to the city council and say, well, we did all this work, everything's all set, so you got to change the zoning. That should be the first step in the process.
So then the question.
So that the discussion about what you said, opening up to other businesses, because it goes from R2 to R4, other businesses, and that's a long discussion. You just don't do it, and expect the city council to give you a vote.
But also too, I think on July 31st, there's a whole slew of zoning changes coming before industrial and community development. And I hope that's just not a one-meeting thing where, yeah, we vote it all in. Those should be long-term discussions, because when you're talking about putting housing at the North Shore Mall, they want to rezone the entire North Shore Mall property, all the way down to where Toys R Us was, all the way to the mall for housing, to allow housing. So the first question is, what's the potential? What's the maximum somebody could put in there for units? What are we going to allow, and could be the impact? So just don't make a carte blanche. Maybe, if you want to have housing, because a lot of those stores will be gone in 3 to 4 years. There'll be a lot of retail will be gone. And I think they're trying to mimic Linfield Marketplace with housing. And there's nothing wrong with that if it's done properly and responsibly and not just flooded with units. And what's the impact? How many units? How's our water supply? Can we feed all these units? Yeah. And this is going to happen all with these zoning changes. What's the impact on our infrastructure, our water, our police, our fire, our schools? Not that I'm against them all, but tell me how many units and what the impact. That's called planning. That's what community development's supposed to do. So let's see where it goes. But this is a classic example, this J.B. Thomas thing, where you're putting the cart before the horse. If you think changing it to R4 is a good idea, you do it because it's a good idea, not because somebody wants to build it. You do it because it's the right thing to do, not because a friend, like on Howley Street, a well-known lawyer has somebody that wants to put apartments in, so we come, hey, can you change the zoning? That's not how it works. I actually don't think that property is a bad site if you tore it down and put up a appropriate space, right? You could stop and shop. You can live there, walk over, and do your shopping. You can.
But that building is a sick building.
Oh no, the building needs to come down. That's another discussion.
But that's the thing. I mean, the thing here is that the city's not doing anybody who wants to live in there any favors until that site's got to be cleaned.
Dick, it would be criminal. And
Absolutely.
I'll use that word to put people in the sick building. Matter of fact, I'm on the board of directors of North Shore Elder Services. So I had a board of directors meeting last night, and one of the women, the people that moved out of the business moved into the same building, and I ran into one of the employees, and she came up to me and said, "Did you hear about the housing?" She goes, "The third floor smelled like vomit all the time because it was ingrained in the floors. Just because you put a rug on it, it leaches out. And you cannot, if you tear it down, start from scratch, put up at a reasonable place, then you can talk. And it also floods." So it's just, you just don't blanket change it without knowing. So I'm a planner, so I like to know what I'm getting myself into.
But the bus is being driven by lawyers.
Yeah.
In this case.
Money.
Yeah.
Money.
And the city government shouldn't be operating that way. They can come and propose whatever the heck they want, But that doesn't mean city government goes along with it, and all of a sudden everybody's on board with it.
No, well, that comes to another issue. Now, and just like when we're going to talk about 58 Pulaski Street
Right.
Later on about the zoning change, you know, when people are negotiating what they're going to build without a zoning change, it implies it's a fait accompli, that the council, we got the votes, the council.
It's a done deal.
And as a councilor, I'd be a little taken back by that. They have a role, and it's a huge role leading the city, and to take their votes for granted is wrong. And I would be offended by that. Somebody says, yeah, we got his vote, don't worry about that. Well, he's no, we'll just go to him. And when people become rubber stamps, that's where it really hurts the system. You know, when you don't stand for anything, and you just go, yeah, that doesn't help the city. It hurts the city. So, you know, as a counselor, you know, does the council matter? If that's the case, if you're going to do, you want this, then do it, and you got the votes, then, you know?
Well, the council, there was
Of course it matters. The councils are huge. It's
you know, I
important
mean,
what they do.
it'd be chaos without a structure.
So I'm not advocating.
No,
you
I know you're
don't.
not. But what I'm saying is, you know, the council should matter more than it does. The fact that councils allow it not to matter, that's what happens when you have councils who are willing to go along, to get along, whatever, and they actually render the body that they get elected to almost ineffective, and really not standing up for what they believe in and helping the citizens, and so.
And I think too, a lot of it comes.
This is not new, by the way.
No.
Because there was a you know, a mayor a number of years back that used to tell the city council to stick to the special permits and don't worry about the city, I'll run the city. And you know something? The council's more than that. It's got a great amount, enormous amount of power. But unfortunately, we've elected councilors over the years that didn't take it seriously.
No. It takes a lot of character and it takes a lot of integrity to stand up and say, no, I don't believe this is the right use or whatever this project is, I don't agree with it.
Right.
And when you just say yes, 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 that means you don't stand for anything. You sit there like this, yes, 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 because no one's infallible. Every proposal doesn't come before the city council from the administration is perfect. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's good. And 99% of the things pass. It's those 1% where you stand up and you say, no, this is not good for our city, but it is what it is.
On this particular project, folks, the former J.B. Thomas Hospital project, I can tell you a lot. I've run into a lot of the neighbors that live up in that, and they've sought me out in different venues that I've seen them at, and they're not in favor of this.
There's a lot of angry people.
They're not in favor of this because they feel as though whatever happened to the concept of changing the character of a neighborhood, a project changing the nature and the character because of the sheer size and scope of the project changes the actual neighborhood. And I mean, that was a concept that used to be used by lawyers to kill projects like this because it wasn't in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. Projects that are proposed have a responsibility to fitting in with the neighborhood. Whoever thought that a developer or whatever could come in and just impose his or her will on a neighborhood, I don't know whoever brought that, you know, that kind of concept to the front, but it's not supposed to happen and it shouldn't happen. But people up in the King Street, Ellsworth area are not really happy with this and are not supportive of it because they're fearful of the change that it's going to bring.
But when comments are made, things are progressing well, and I live across the street, I'd be like, what's going on?
Right.
What are you planning for my neighborhood? This is my house. It's going to impact my property values. It's going to impact where my children, you know, if there's, you know, a lot of, 135 units, you're looking at average of two cars per unit.
Of course.
270 car trips in and out.
And if you know the demography of that area, you know it's dense. I mean,
that traffic light will be
Yeah.
a mess. Then they'll be weaving through all the side streets to find the easiest way out. Just like when they changed the lane configuration on Main Street, they all go up through Harris and Tracy and all that, and all those neighbors felt the impact. And that neighborhood will feel the impact.
Of course.
Guarantee it.
Of course. I mean, every action is a reaction, right, folks? That's
I'm
really-
not waiting in that light on,
Yeah.
what is it, Endicott's, King Street. I'm not waiting that light. I'm going to go down, and I'm going to,
Yep.
cheat the light.
Yep.
And
So
should be
anyway,
interesting.
that's the reason we bring this up, because the process isn't being followed properly in this particular project. It should be used and followed, but it's not being, and unfortunately, it's hurting the neighbors and neighborhood and everything else. So, excuse me. So anyway, the third project we want to talk about. Do you want to do the Walnut Street?
No, this is a good segue into Pulaski Street.
You want to do Pulaski
Yeah,
Street?
so-
Okay, we can do Pulaski.
Let me just preface what happened. So, 58 Pulaski Street is the two big mill buildings. And a gentleman bought it, and he's doing a great job renovating. They're doing a nice job on the building. So I was over there I had a meeting with the owner, and he tells me, yeah, we're going to put food in here. And I looked at him and I says, well, you realize the food's not allowed in the light industrial zone, right? So he just goes, well, we're working on it. So I just said, well, I just walked, I said, yeah, good for you. So I'm on Facebook, and last Friday, somebody puts a post, hey, we're excited, we got a cafe opening soon. Food and coffee and all this, and then there's a pizza place going in. And I'm saying, wait a minute. Somebody's told them that it's okay, that we're going to change the zoning. Now, once again, it hasn't come to the city council. Not that I don't think it's not a bad idea, but the point is, once again, the council doesn't matter. Somebody in community development, I'm assuming it is, said, yeah, we're going to change the zoning on that, implying the council's going to vote for it. And so once again, and I'd like to know, I should have gone in and see if they started working on it before they even changed the zoning.
Why don't we take a trip over there and see if it's...
Well, I can call the building inspector and ask if, well, first you got to pull a permit. So I don't know if they pulled a permit, but that just rubbed me the wrong way. But it's not about whether, whether it's a good or bad thing to have the food in there. It's about the process.
About the process.
And once again, if I was a counselor, I'd be...
Is it simple? Is it as simple as a counselor or two standing up and say, "Hey, look, we matter. You can't do this without checking with us." So you want to marginalize us, but we matter. So you're not going to do this until you come before us.
The bigger question is, does the Ward 3 counselor know about it? Because if I was him and they were planning this and I didn't know about it, I would be very angry, very angry. So once again, it's the same pattern that we're seeing. And
a failure to communicate.
yeah,
What we have here is a
the
failure to communicate.
And
So,
the council needs to stand up and say no more.
So light industrial, what you're saying is light industrial, which that area is zoned for. Food is not allowed.
Food is not allowed. Now they're coming up with a new zoning plan. They're calling it a Mill District Overlay District.
The Mod Squad.
Yeah, so in that zoning, part of it is to allow mixed use, to allow food and bakery and retail and all that.
Right.
But then the other kicker is they're going to allow housing in there on the upper floors. So once again, these are long discussions. Not just hey, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's vote for it. What's the plan? How many units? Because that's a big place up there. Then, in the zoning, they're only saying allow 12 units, but you can go to the city council and petition and ask them to override it. And the city council can override whatever the zoning says in this new ordinance. So, I don't know.
And again, the impact on the city's infrastructure is always, an issue as well. So, when they override anything or when they change zoning, I mean, it doesn't seem as though a lot of people pay attention to those types of things. And quality of life, all that kind of stuff.
We had the mayor here, we had that big discussion about the water plan and all that.
Right.
Water is so crucial, and there's some huge Hey, how much water does a brewery use? No, we got 2 coming in. One's already, I think, open. There's one coming in on Main Street. There's supposed to be a 3rd on Railroad. I don't know where that's a lot. They're gonna have 3 swimming pools and probably 300 showers a day at this gym. Then you could put thousands of apartments. So, do we have enough water without going to the MWRA, which we don't want to do?
That's what we shouldn't do. If we
I don't know if you read the article, but Linfield is their selectmen are fighting with the water district because they just quadrupled everybody's rates. People are having a revolution in Linfield. So,
your government at work, and again, they're doing stuff supposedly to make Peabody grow. We can't. Peabody's, Peabody's lines are already fixed. We can't expand the city, okay? We can't expand the city physically. But that doesn't mean you dump all kinds of, more people and projects into the city to make it grow. I mean, that's no way of growing a city, especially when it comes to quality of life and impact on infrastructure. And, I don't get it. And, there are a lot of cities are backing off taking federal monies these days. It's a big rage now across the country. A lot of cities are not taking federal money anymore because it requires certain amounts, like the 10%, the affordable housing, and you've got to do this, you got to do that. And a lot of cities are saying, we don't want it. We've seen the impacts of all these things, and our quality of life is suffering. The city is not what it used to be. I mean, a lot of people are getting fed up.
The city's changing. It's not what it was in the 70s, the 80s.
How much more traffic do we want in Peabody? How much? I mean, really, folks, you're out there like I am every day driving. I mean, do you think it's pleasurable driving in the city of Peabody?
It's tough.
I mean, that's just driving. I'm not talking about air quality and noise quality and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, how much more can the city take? You can't expand the city. So what do? You're dumping more people in.
You build up.
So the density gets so bad that you can't even walk down the street without bumping into people. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So, so anyway, this is why we bring these things up. It's not we're against projects and all that, but this gets to a point where it gets to be a little bit too much, and I think that's where we're getting right now.
And now we segue into Howley Street for another proposal to change. That's in the GBD, 26 Howley Street. I know the building. I lived in it for 6 years.
Right.
I'm like, well,
the corner of Walnut Street and Howley, right next to the Holy Ghost
Peabody Glass
Society and Peabody Glass, across from Peabody Glass, and the shop and the Stop and Shop.
I worked there for over 6 years or so. I know the building in and out. It needs to come down.
And that's the building you were talking about. That lady came up to you and said,
it smells
it's
like
a sick
vomit.
building.
It's a sick building. I could talk for half an hour on it. And once again, a lawyer proposed the zoning, and then now the city's supporting it because community development wants it.
He already wrote the proposal, didn't he?
Yeah. So once again, you can't build and you can't put people in that building. If you want to tear it down, and then you have a vacant piece and you want to develop it to have housing, then how many units? How are you going to prevent the flooding? Because that was really, we'd get 3 feet of water up against the building during heavy rainstorms.
How many stories is that building?
That building is 3 stories.
It's 3 stories, okay.
3
so
stories.
I don't plan on going up or anything like that on it.
Well, hopefully it goes down.
Yeah.
and it just gets leveled because there's a trench in the basement that's about 30 feet long and about 4 feet deep because all the water from the North River floods into it during storms. And so they're pumping back out. They're pumping against the tide.
Right.
And it's created mold and mildew and black mold in the building. And like I use the word, it would be criminal to put people in there. You want to tear it down, that's a whole different discussion about changing it and making something appropriate, and you could redesign it, get it away from the water. So, and it's also illegal to pump back into a U.S. waterway. So the Conservation Commission has to be involved, and I'm sure they get waivers, that all connive to. It's just a bad building, but I'm not saying it's not a bad location for some housing.
Right.
That fits
But
in
that
the area.
building is inhabitable, basically.
In my opinion, in the Board of Health knows all about it. There were so many complaints about air quality in that building that they know about it, so I hope they don't remain silent, when the time comes. And I believe the ward council's against it, but, and I did speak to him about it. And I said, look, he's going to bring a bunch of people to the meeting, and whether they have the votes to change the zoning.
Right.
So I don't know.
But see, it calls into question, we have a call? You have a call? It just calls into question, before we take this call, it calls into question what the heck is our city government doing with projects like this being proposed by lawyers and whatnot. And there should be a big stop sign every time that happens. But anyway, Carl, you're on.
Hey, Dick. Barry?
How are you doing?
Barry, you've got, within this year, you're coming back. I'm telling you.
You're going to have to get a firearm against me to make me come back right now.
Barry, just take out the papers. It's not that complicated.
Do you want to do the Ward 6 party again?
Will you run this campaign?
Let me tell you something, guys. This has been a colossal cluster, you know what, in this city in the last 6 months. Between what you guys are talking about now, what's going to happen tomorrow night with regards to because it's NASCAP, all of a sudden, it was voted down, it's going to come back.
Yep. The signal
Barry,
is
how many times in your tenure did something that was voted down within the next meeting was put back on the agenda and is going to pass?
No,
I agree.
It's no
And
doubt
what
it's going to pass.
The signal about that is that the mayor is supporting it. So,
Really? Now, where was he 2 weeks ago?
vacation? I don't know. Have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, not to speak for the mayor, but he probably thought it was a no-brainer. Yeah, that's what I would assume. I mean,
Well, Dick, let me ask you this question: How come it was not a no-brainer? I find it hard to believe that the first meeting of a new city council president, that he was going to be the one to stop this.
Well, we made a remark. I made the remark earlier in the show where reason we brought it up in the first place is the government shouldn't be acting this way. There's clearly some personal agendas here. Clearly, so the reason it's a no-brainer because there's personal agendas here.
There has to be.
and I think it's a little fractured.
I mean, let's not beat around the bush. It is. There is personal agendas here. And that's why we brought it up. We don't want government to act this way. Every project that we brought up right now, we don't want government to act this way. We don't want government to take proposals from lawyers to rehab a building, a sick building, not tear it down, but just redo it over, spray some of that, what is it, Fabergé, whatever it is. Febreze, okay? Because people can get sick. They can develop.
I'll be honest with you. I missed the first half of the program.
But the reason we're bringing these projects up because they have a special interest to us because they're examples of what government should not be doing for us and for our city.
I agree.
So that's why we bring it up.
This is a private enterprise.
And there's people here driving the bus that are interested in making money, and that's what they're there for. Developers, lawyers, and whatnot, and the city's going to be left with whatever they, you talk about a cluster, you know what,
Yep.
okay? It's going to be an S show, okay?
Yeah.
Basically,
I
that's
agree.
what it is. And the thing is, and we're stuck with it. We're paying for this kind of government. We're paying for it. And I listened to some people who talked about the project up in King Street. They're pretty unhappy about it. And
Yep.
they can't seem to get anybody to listen to them. 10 minutes, okay. So anyway, that's why we bring it up, and we're sorry to probably bore people to death on it, but we've got to make some kind of a statement about what's going on, because people obviously think everything they're doing is wonderful. I don't know. So.
Well, the whole King Street thing. That's a whole. I'm with you 100% on that one thing.
Man.
Please.
But anyway,
Please.
thank you very much. We appreciate the call. And,
All righty.
sorry you missed the first half of the show. We'll try to make this part a little
You
more.
can catch it on YouTube.
Barry, come back, will you, please?
We'll see.
All righty.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Thanks for the call. Okay. Do we have another one? We do have another one. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to rush that call, but we have another call, so they're going to get it in here now.
Bring it on.
We got it? Well set? Caller, you there? Caller, are you there?
Yes, just a comment.
Can you speak up? I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Just a comment.
Okay.
Yes.
It'll just be a matter of time before Brooksby Farm will be the next place that's going to be sold for the right price to build whatever they're going to build.
Oh, don't say that.
That would be a travesty.
It would be, but it scares me, the thought. But they're building condos over at the mall. What's going to be next?
That's a treasure.
Farm?
That's a city treasure. That I would find
I
that
hope
hard to
you're
believe.
right.
Well, you know,
Just comment, because I want a place to be able to express how I feel.
Yeah, no,
you just drew shockwaves into this movie set, by the way.
yeah,
Never even thought of anything like that.
Oh,
Man.
that would, you talk about having a revolution in the city. It's too much of a community place to gather, and events and kids and families.
See,
I
we're
hope
going
so.
through a makeup of Peabody that all of us are going to be really, like, either surprised, shocked, disappointed in, because, everybody talks about Peabody. Oh, Peabody, wonderful. All the Peebs, they say that. But it's wonderful what they got now. But when they make all these changes and they get rid of iconic places, or they change the nature of things, it's not going to be the same way.
right.
So I don't know. That's why we bring it up. And
Well, times change, and
well, I know that, but
and
that doesn't mean because they change, you just blindly go along with it. I don't know.
Thank you for having a place where an arena where we can voice our views.
No, thank you for
We
watching.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
All
a
right,
lot.
take care.
Appreciate that. So that was nice. But that's why we bring these things up. We're not I'm not anti-development or anything like that. But I'm pro neighborhoods. I'm pro citizens, their quality of life and all that. They pay their taxes. They should be getting something really decent for their taxes, their tax dollars. And I don't find this kind of stuff really good for us. But that's me. And I'm sure my house will be burned down to the ground by the time I get home. But I can't help it. I've got to
watch behind me.
when you go to Dick's Sporting Goods, can you get 2 black jackets?
Okay.
Me too? We have a call? Okay. Caller, you're on.
Hey, guys, I got one quick one for you.
Sure.
Okay, yeah.
Where are they going to put the new high school?
We were going to avoid that tonight because we had so much to talk about.
Brooksby Farm is looking pretty good.
Oh, there you go. Oh, all right.
All right. Have
Thank
a good
you.
night, guys.
Thanks for throwing a monkey wrench into this now.
well,
Yeah, bye.
Take care.
Now, let's just wrap this all together and talk about one other quick issue, because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes, right? About 5 minutes? Yeah. it's
The,
okay.
the city charter is under review.
Yep.
There's been a whole process to go through it.
Yep.
And somebody just told me that whatever the outcome of the charter is, it is not going to a vote of the people. That the
Heard
11
that.
city councilors are going to control the outcome of the charter, and whatever is changed in the charter will be controlled. I don't know where that came from. I thought it was by law that they had to, go to the people. And which I think is the fair way to do it when you're going to talk about changing term limits, changing possibly the way our government is run.
Yep.
I don't think it should be given to 11 people. I mean, this is a far and wide impact on our community, and it should go to a ballot. And once the information starts coming out, we're going to get a feel, because, the question is, who's going to be driving the bus on this? Who's going to be making the changes? Is it, the committee they elected? Is it going to be elected officials? It really should be an open process, voted on by, to me, voted on by the people. And it's been done in many other communities. I've never seen it done that way.
Yeah.
But that's a little scary. Then we talk about these issues and how things aren't kind of going smoothly. It makes me a little nervous about what changes could be made, in a fractured council. So,
Well, this information about the charter, folks, has been like under the surface for a while, but we've heard about it, and it's, I can't think of anything more undemocratic than a charter being implemented by a group of 11 people. Okay, and you talk about. Thank you. You talk about flushing the most important segment of government, which is the people who are being governed, okay? Flushing them out so that they're not part of any process. I can't think of anything more undemocratic than that. I hope these are just, false rumors. I hope. I sincerely hope, but I sincerely hope that if they're not, that people do speak through their representatives and say, we're not going to allow this.
yeah, I don't know what the recourse is or how it was done, but I don't get a good vibe from it. I don't get a good
Well,
vibe.
I know that the city council, well, you were on the council at the time. I mean, these charter changes have come through in the past and all that, and they work on it through the committees. There's the
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that it doesn't go forward for a vote of the people. You know what I mean?
But you don't want any votes to be political, right? So it's one thing to propose one thing, but if the people proposing the changes, it's all their way, but if somebody wants something different, it's going to get flushed. You won't have a shot at ever, hey, let's take the school committee and make it a 2-year term.
And the reason this is important because it's more than a format of how the city is supposed to run and all that. But it's also thank you. It's also It's the limits on offices.
Offices.
Like the mayor right now is 2 years, right?
2 years.
They're proposing 4 years. Now, the folks like you and I and Barry, we should be able to vote on that. We may not agree or we may agree, but they should hear from us. So it shouldn't be determined, we got 1 minute, it shouldn't be determined by the city council. This is what you're getting. No, it shouldn't be that way. And so this is why we bring it up. And we're gonna be on this like bee on honey. I'm telling you, this is undemocratic the way it's looking.
Let's
So,
worry about it after the Pats Super Bowl.
Yes, victory. Okay.
Everything gets a back seat.
Just want to say thank you. We got 30 seconds. They're ready to chop my head off here. Thanks a lot for joining in tonight.
Yeah, it was a good
Barry,
show.
thank you.
Thank you.
It went by so fast. I can't believe how fast it went by. But thank you for joining us. Thanks for the calls. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks when we ask you to make the call. Good night. Thank you.